Gangstabet is ICON's next generation NFT collectibles of 5,555 gangsters and detectives, with changeable names and stats. Holders of Gangstabet NFTs receive daily distributions of GBet tokens. GBet can be used to upgrade their NFT skills and stats. The supply of GBet will decrease over time and will stop after 9 years. Holding Gangstabet NFTs will have opportunities for future airdrops and will give you access to Gangstabet's highly anticipated metaverse. Learn more at gangstabet.io.
Shout out to our sponsors at ICONBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. ICONBet, made by the players, for the players.
Eye on Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eye on Icon, the episode where we go around the ecosystem and bring you the latest and greatest. And what a week it's been. With me always, Icongrapher. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Good, man. Good. I think our pre-show chats are getting longer and longer these days, aren't they? So much to digest.
Yep.
Okay. Well, look, doing well, man. Things have been quite busy, as you know. So, let's dive into the news. Let's tackle markets. It's a strange time. What's going on in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I think there's a lot of different things going on right now. Obviously, I think the main narrative for a while was the concern over inflation and what that would mean for interest rates. Obviously, we've seen some corrections both in the traditional markets, but also the crypto markets. I think part of that is there is soon to be a built. I've joked about this plenty of times in the past, but there is soon to be a bit of a correlation there, at least a strong, and I think a strong correlation right now. It seems to me over history that I was reading something that pointed out that this has happened typically in the past, that during crypto downturns they start to get correlated with traditional markets, and that the average correlation period lasts about 70 days or something like that. So I don't know, A, that's average. B, just because it happened in the past doesn't mean it'll happen in the future. But that's something to be, consider of whether or not maybe we getting close to maybe breaking that correlation now. So there was the concern with interest rates, and obviously over the last few weeks, as the Ukraine-Russia situation has heated up, I think that's only thrown fuel on the fire as far as the downturn is concerned. And my kind of thinking, and I potentially might have be proven right on this, but we'll have to wait a few days. I think they always talk about buy the rumor, sell the news. So in a lot of times in crypto, there'll be some, oh, this is going to happen soon, and so everyone gets excited, the price goes up, and then once the actual a launch date happens or the release of a new feature happens or whatever it is that was driving the excitement, as soon as it actually happens, and you would think that would be what makes the price go up, all of a sudden the price goes down. So I think what might happen here is the inverse happened, where it was a sell the rumor and then buy the actual news. So, I think as soon as there was so much uncertainty, and then as soon as it happened, everyone kind of said, well, it can't get any worse from here. We've already kind of priced in everything. So, we basically hit, I think we went all the way down to like somewhere in the 34s as far as Bitcoin's concerned. And same with the markets as far as like the futures overnight during the invasion happening. I think NASDAQ was down more than 3% at one point, which is relatively high. As soon as we kind of hit bottom, there was a pretty aggressive turnaround. Bitcoin shot all the way up to like, I don't know what it's at now. I don't have it in front of me, but it was in the 38s. It hit 39 at one point, and NASDAQ closed like 3% up green. So I'm looking at futures right now. They're a little bit red, but we'll see. They just opened, and so we'll see. So we might have seen potentially a local bottom or even an actual bottom. And maybe with the global conflict, there's less willingness to raise rates now, which if the narrative plays out would be theoretically bullish. But again, there's still a lot of uncertainty out there, and until we're discorrelated from traditional markets, it's going to be, I think it's going to be hard to kind of prognosticate a whole lot as far as Icon and the crypto markets as a whole.
Yep, I think We hit close to 40K, and at the moment hovering at 38,000. It's interesting, the narrative. Yes, I think I saw some tweets, and it was, well, gold is holding, but Bitcoin isn't. And you actually, Iconographer, you
Yeah.
did it, yeah. That tweet didn't age well. That
Well,
was a
it's funny
good.
because like people were like literally it was like one day of data, and they're like, well, looks like the whole narrative about Bitcoin being digital gold is wrong, as opposed to like looking at the last 10 years where gold has basically been flat for a decade, and Bitcoin's obviously done its thing. So it was just
Mm,
so funny to see people after like take literally one day of data during an uncertain period, and basically declaring victory, and then literally like 3 hours later, gold crashing and then Bitcoin shooting way up. So
mm,
it was just funny to watch. Anytime whenever people take a selective, someone was there was I saw someone else talking about how, well, if a year ago if you would have bought the S&P, you'd be up 6%, and if you bought Bitcoin, you'd be down 40% or whatever it was year on year. It's like, okay, well, if you specifically pick a time window that most favors your argument, of course you can make it look like anything.
yeah, yeah.
Meanwhile, if you say, if you would have bought 2 years ago versus 1 year ago, obviously Bitcoin would have been a much better investment. So, it all depends on what your time frame is, what your investment um, priorities are, and things like that. There was a lot of spiking the football and dunking going on the internet today, and again, it was like a 12-hour window where it was semi correct, and but it that quickly changed, and it could change again back. But again, that's why I try to zoom out as much as possible and not follow day to day trends to prove points.
Yeah, agree. Okay, well, that's markets. I mean, even as we're saying, ETH has had a solid. Oh, this can turn into a solid buy, or the rebound's been good. Let's see how the day closes. I think we got 53 minutes. Hopefully, it closes well. But okay, let's dive into the news. There's a lot to cover. Now, just before we get on to Icon Loop, that's what we want to kick off with. I wanted to do this at the start rather than down the line. Icongraph.info. So Paul, if we've seen his tweets, I believe he is also building the bubble. The thing that got CPS funding, which is the in-browser NFT game that you can do a few things with. He's actually got an advertisement on his site, but he's built this Icongraph site where you can put in your address and it will show you all kinds of information for all different addresses that is associated or touch that wallet, which is cool. Just so it was, I saw them post this a while back. I don't know. Have you dabbled with it, Icongrapher?
I have not. I saw it. I saw it pop up on my Twitter, I think, and I said, "Oh, that's kind of interesting. I'll have to be sure to try that out." I filed it away, but I haven't had a chance to play around with it yet. I do, and I do like the name of the website though.
Yeah, yeah. I figured you would. I'm like, oh, damn it, another way of that. Am I saying it right or not? Anyway, but yeah, look, shout out. It's good to see, and really excited to see the NFT project coming along as well. Although I have looked, I have been checking the Frost testnet, and I've noticed sometimes the bubble contracts are on there, which I find interesting. Little alpha there, maybe. I could be completely wrong, but that's great. Keep up the great work, Paul. Hopefully, we see more of this stuff. I can already see TJ; he's all over this, commenting with suggestions of how it can evolve. Good to see as well. But keep at it. Let's get you on the show soon to talk about your projects and stuff you're working on with Icon. If you haven't explored it, it's a read-only, everyone, so don't stress. You just paste your address and then it shows you all connecting addresses. You can grab the cards and move it across so you can visualize it. Cool. What's next? Let's kick off with... I've done... I don't know, I've set this up all wrong. I'm getting there, Iconographer. The next thing, hey, I thought this was interesting. Ohm tweeted that currently... I haven't looked... This was a tweet a couple of hours back. I don't know if you saw this, Iconographer. Balance tokens, if you supply it, you're earning around close to 200% APY. And
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah.
I wasn't sure what might have motivated that or caused that. I was like trying to think. I've been a little bit focused on some other stuff lately, so I haven't been following things as closely. But I figured that was I'm not sure if that was a random occurrence or it has been a random occurrence where all of a sudden shot up, or if there was something that might have happened to trigger such a. I assume it's driven by a well, it'd be driven either by a shortage of ohm up for supply. I'm sorry, BALN up for supply, or insane demand. So I'm not quite sure what triggered it.
So, me either. The only thing I can think of is, has the vote started for the new, which we're going to talk about later, but that's one thing I didn't check. The only thing I could think of when I saw this was perhaps the vote has started and people really want to have a say and they've gone and borrowed extra ohm to, lock it up.
Yeah, there's 3 days and 17 hours left on it.
Okay, so that
And
could
so
be.
yeah, that's a good point. I was kind of that was one thing that crossed my mind, is maybe there's something high stakes that having it would be helpful, but it'll be that's a lot of interest to pay on. I guess it's only 3 days, so maybe not the end of the world.
Mm.
But that can compound kind of quickly, especially considering I believe you have to have it staked for you'd have to have it staked in order to vote, and then you have to have it staked for at least 24 hours to do so. So I guess
Oh, is it?
ultimately,
Okay,
you
yeah,
could
yeah.
borrow, stake for 24 hours, and then unstake, or stake it, uh, um, vote, and then it takes 3 days to unstake, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So you're paying at least 3 days worth of interest on that. So yeah, interesting dynamics at play there.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, now let's dive in. The words aren't coming out. Icon Loop news. What have we got, Iconographer?
Yeah, so this was kind of unexpected. I guess not totally unexpected, because we did get a sense that they were doing something a little bit outside the box. But basically, I guess the short of it is essentially, IconLoop is for the most part pivoting into the article kind of references the virtual asset space, which I
Mm.
guess you could shorthand for, basically doing more NFT stuff, which is yeah, surprising, but also makes sense. I think, I would say there's a lot of history that goes with Icon Loop, especially dating all the way back to kind of its why it started and its origins, all that other good stuff. But ultimately, it was kind of the technical power horse behind trying to build all these. A Icon Loop built the engine that runs the actual Icon blockchain, so they're the technical partner for the public, Icon Foundation blockchain that we all know and love. But they were also charged with kind of trying to build out a lot of the interoperability and some of the other features for some of the enterprise clients from the early days. But also they especially ultimately end up being, revolving a lot around the MID alliance and the decentralized identification and everything like that. And so if you think of it that way, where their specialty became decentralized identification and DID, it's not that crazy to imagine they move into NFTs in the NFT space, because the DID is all about verification, authenticity, non fungibility, all that other stuff. Whereas that's basically kind of what NFTs are as well. So
Mm.
I don't know if they're doing a full pivot, and it sounds like they'll still be doing some of the other, some of their working on some of the stuff they've been building out and maintaining and all that other good stuff. But it seems like they're kind of, as far as moving forward in the future, going to be delving more in the other space. We got the news that they launched a gaming platform isn't quite the right word, but essentially, a gaming. Yeah, I'll just say platform, just because that's the only thing I can think of right now. But platform to launch, NFT based games. It's called the Spera project, or SPERA project. And so, I'm certainly excited to see how that continues to grow. I was pretty excited when that news first came out. It probably dropped a month ago, maybe
Mm.
6 weeks ago. Yeah, so certainly some exciting news, but nice to see, and excited for the future of Icon Loop. And I totally expect, this. It's also a partnership with Icon as well, if I recall correctly. So they'll still be very involved as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, so which it's a cool partnership because it's a bit different. It's not something that's being built on the Icon chain. They are purpose building a chain for this NFT gaming project, but the goal is that it will connect to BTP. It'll have BTP smart contracts built into it. And as we know, that's where Icon comes into the picture. So it's I feel it's cool. I don't feel the potential has been realized here that right off the bat of creation, I kind of get the Flow vibe from it. Flow was created for that NBA Hot Shots and kind of those kind of NFT projects. So I feel this very similar. They're trying to build gaming and they want to create their own blockchain for it, and at the same time then use the building blocks of BTP to then facilitate cross-chain transfers of their NFTs, etc. So it's not just closed loop on their ICONLOOP, closed loop on their actual chain. They're what they're building is then they can expand out to any blockchain with BTP. So it's a cool partnership. Yes. In all of this, though, one thing doesn't change. They're still our technical partner and working on stuff for the tech that they have delivered, which is BTP, etc. But it's good to have news from ICONLOOP. What's next?
So this is kind of interesting. So recently there was a hackathon that happened. I believe we discussed it, I think on the last news episode we did at least. And one of the winners there has decided, I think they probably rightfully saw the fact that they were successful in the hackathon as a indication that what they built was worth pursuing further. And so they have submitted or in the process of submitting a CPS application for building out their project a lot more. And it's basically, you should probably see the name, it's the Eclectica, and it's basically a metaverse platform for Icon. So there's some, both in the hackathon and the proposal itself, there's some screenshots and things like that. It's 3D. It looks pretty good. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of direction they could potentially take it to continue polishing it and building it out and things like that. But they have a pretty ambitious kind of feature set they want to do. They want it to be they want to be multiplayer. They want it to be as far as the NFT aspect of it is concerned, include artist royalties. There'd be access to events and things like that that would be token gated, and even virtual reality and augmented reality support. So, it seems like a pretty ambitious project. But again, they've got a pretty good start going already. They've already proven that they're capable of building at least this initial iteration, and they have it pretty well thought out too. So I think they're looking for. I can't remember if they have a sponsor yet and if it's been formally submitted. But nonetheless, certainly something excited to see another potential potential exciting project come out of CPS.
Yeah, look, I always come back to, I don't know what's going on with CPS, but I've had it on screen. But IconDAO, I'm guessing, would be sponsoring it, given they actually ran the hackathon. $34,000, and we saw some of the entries, and this was a great one. But all the winners, there was some fantastic entries. I still can't get over with such a small amount of money what they were able to establish. So hopefully they do more of that. But this is great. It's gone to CPS. That's the ultimate goal, isn't it? We want to see more projects. New people come through via hackathons to go, holy moly, we can actually build on Icon and get funding. So this is what's happening here. So make sure, if you haven't already, you don't need to sign into CPS to see what's going on. There should be some charts here telling us how the voting's going. I don't know, it's just showing up blank for me. But overall, you can see there's a fair few projects asking for money. Crafter, Dev, they want money to expand their protocol. So yeah, make sure you're checking CPS, and when you click on it, it gives you detailed descriptions of the project, and you can actually then, it should actually show the votes and stuff, and you can see if your P reps are saying yes or no to what's being put forward. So great outcome. We'll hopefully see more of that. Next up, okay, this is a good one, Icongrapher. I feel next topic we would need to talk about is balance. Now, I feel like we've always skimmed over the stuff that has happened. I think for me, I understood the impacts. I have very different views to a large portion of the community as to what transpired, so I decided to keep fairly quiet around it. We've seen a range of proposals. If you didn't know what I'm talking about, obviously the liquidation event that impacted a lot of people who were borrowing on balance. I saw it, the community was fairly torn as to what actions should be taken moving forward. What I did see, though, was consistently Scott and the team and everyone actually putting a whole range of proposals together to, well, what should we do next? The first batch, everything got declined, and I know people who lost obviously were disappointed by this. I saw a lot of people who lost were very proactively calling out that regardless, even though they lost, they wouldn't say yes to any kind of proposal that involved handing any portion of the funds back to people who got liquidated, which also I found quite interesting. Iconographer, what has been your takeaway with balance and what's happened?
I haven't been as I haven't borrowed on balance since basically probably the early days. So I haven't been basically at all impacted by rebalancing or any of the issues that happened here. So from my own kind of personal, I guess you could say selfish perspective, I haven't followed it obviously as close as others might have who have been, more impacted by some of these dynamics. I will say that, I think it's been kind of an interesting debate to follow from afar. I think there's some people who are like have this mentality that these are the rules, and we have to stand by the rules, and everything like that. And it's not like there's anything. This is an industry that literally changes by the day, whereas having flexibility and being able to innovate within that flexibility is of the utmost importance. And so I think people are kind of set on like, oh no, this is how it was written, therefore we're not allowed to do anything that deviates from that, even if it might potentially, keep some users happy and help grow the platform and everything like that. So I think, I'm not necessarily taking sides, but I think people should kind of like, instead of like attaching themselves to how they think, kind of putting themselves in a box and putting the platform in a box as far as what the quote unquote rules are, and how, what the expectations are and everything like that, rather look forward and say, okay, what move will be best for the long-term success of the platform, both whether that's retaining users, ensuring there's incentives for future users to show up, and just improving the overall experience and value of using the platform. Whether it's this or any other vote, I think that's the important approach to take. I'm not going to weigh in on the specifics on this one necessarily, because again, I haven't followed it as much as I wish I had. In order to do that. But that's just kind of from a granular view of watching the debate play out. That's just kind of one thing I've noticed.
Yeah, look, I think for me, I felt people got attacked unnecessarily. One, liquidators, for example, I voiced up a little bit about this. They're just doing what the protocol is meant to do to keep the peg. And when events like these happen, if they didn't exist, we wouldn't be talking. BNUSD would be looking at it the same way as ICX, right? Oh, it's hit $1.25. When it'll hit $10, it defeats the point of the coin being stable. So I think that line, when it got taken, was a bit silly, and misunderstanding around that was a bit. It shouldn't have happened. They're not the people, they're just doing what the protocol enables. The idea that, to your point, yes, it's all there, everyone should have known their risks. Completely agree. I'm off the view set, though, that the community is small. Let's not get crazy over here. We are a small community and very engaged. And I called that out in the 100th episode, just how engaged everyone is. So we've had this massive event. People have suffered. Everyone's been pointing fingers. There was no fingers to point. It was just the name of what transpired. And this current proposal, it is I actually read it, really well thought out, and calling out all the points. And one thing that does happen with balanced is when you get liquidated, your whole stash goes. Traditionally, so the liquidators, they're making a standard rate that's consistent. The rest of the stash goes to the reserve fund, emergency reserve. So this particular goodwill for the Black Swan event, as it's called, is kind of going, okay, well, the emergency fund acquired this excess ICX because that's what they say the platform, that's what is said in the docs and stuff. This is what the platform will do. But at the same time, should it be doing that? Could the platform have been improved? Why is there a need to keep the stash? I know it says that in the documents, but this is traditionally not not something that happens across other protocols. So in this case, this proposal addresses that and goes, okay, well, we can redistribute that money to the impacted users who did get liquidated. And I also get the other uproar. It's like, well, some people sold at a loss to keep themselves getting liquidated. So, in this case, they have also put together 100,000 SICX to get distributed to those people who had a loan on Jan 20th, basically. Now, yeah, look, I think it's kudos to the community member who put this together and did a lot of research. I think this, it says it in the doc. Well, I just don't agree with that. I think, as you said, everything's always evolving. We have an event, if it can be done in a fair way, and we haven't blown up like the next big chain yet. So why not make sure we're looking after our community? And this is a great example. It looks like it's going to, well, there are 3 days left, and so far it's sitting on approve. So let's hope this works out.
Well, it is and it isn't, because it's sitting at 54%. At least sitting at 54%, but it requires 66. So it has a majority, but it doesn't have the supermajority as of yet required to actually get implemented.
Yeah. Let's see. I think so. It's like, well, I was telling you this before, Iconographer. We say we have 500 users. Now we're down to 200 users. This potentially has the ability to bring us back to, I don't know, 350, or just lose, a large chunk, a half of our user base. I get it. The rules are a thing. I don't know. I'm very torn about this. I feel this proposal is a really good one compared to the previous ones. The previous ones, I didn't quite follow much of it. But this one, I've really read it, and I thought, a lot of thought. It's the right thing. It feels right given the state of our community as well. And yeah, anyway, people won't agree with me. Totally get it. But yeah, let's see how this plays out. Only 170 votes though, so not that many. Okay, next up, OHM update. Let's quickly go through this. Iconographer, I have it on the screen.
So we got our February 2022 roadmap update from OHM. I think one of the kind of things that stands out the most is the interest history charts that are finally live. I mean, they look really cool. They look really slick. But it just gives you a chance. It gives you a chance to see how well they paid over time. Just because sometimes it might be helpful to know. Oh, why is it? If you see a number, is that historically low? Is that historically high? And if it's either or, you can start to say, okay, why is that happening? I think, for example, with BAL, and right now it's always going to be way higher than it's been historically. So you can kind of start to noodle over, okay, why is that? What's the deal with that? So I think that's certainly that's kind of a feature that stands out to me the most. I think one of the other things they flag is the token economic enhancements. Basically, there have been a lot of brainstorming on how to improve OHM, and one of the key features they're discussing is utilizing the vote escrow model that Curve has implemented. which has obviously kind of taken a lot of the crypto industry, I won't say by storm, but it's being implemented on a lot of different other tokenomic models, including BALN and others on the Icon ecosystem. So that's one thing being pointed out. There's also a DAO fund for the monks, which is in OHM Improvement Proposal 8, where 32,000 of OHM will be given to a group of community members known as the OHM Monks to cover 3 months of marketing, education, and community engagement initiatives. So that proposal is, I believe, currently still up for vote. And so, yeah, just nothing super, expansive as far as like a bunch of granular features. It's more kind of big picture, but as always, a nice update to see, and certainly a lot to be excited for as far as OHM's concerned.
Yeah, the Monk's proposal, I believe, passed as well. So look forward to them,
there you go.
Yeah, putting stuff together. Look, yeah, all great. The token economic enhancements, I found that's good. Everything's trending the right way. The OHM staking API for PREPs, that's a good one. I know, so they've enabled that, and so that more PREPs can capitalize on the voting power of OHM. As you know, when you have it staked, you can go and pick your PREP so that when the SICX gets delegated to whoever's on that list accordingly, rather than defaulting to the, what do they call themselves now? The early contributors.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's OHM.
One thing to point out is there was a kind of community conversation about what to call the version of OHM that was basically locked with the vote escrow, and boosted OHM is what the clear favorite was. So B, lowercase b, OMM. So in case you see that, that's where that came from.
Yep. The next thing is, what's this? The DAO fund. No, we've already talked about that. Oh yes, I just had all the tweets up. So Monks Academy, they did a. So we know we have Karma DAO Finance, protocol owned liquidity. Now, I haven't actually listened to this. I do want to. Hyperconnect got on there and had a chat, because obviously what's starting to happen, which we can just lead straight into that, is the Karma DAO has started approaching, Karma Finance has started approaching, OHM and Balance on the forums, going, hey, we want to come to an agreement to have a protocol loan liquidity, which is cool. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It makes sense. Just so everyone's clear now, because we've had the rise and fall of reserve currencies and people calling the OHM forks, and many of them have collapsed, some of them are still going, and things like that. And I think POL kind of snuck in there because essentially these reserve currencies were taking LPs, which is your, in this case, let's say OHM and BNUSD, or OHM and USDS, and you could deposit the LP into these protocols and get the discount, a 10% discount off the OHM token paid out to do that. And that's where this term protocol loan liquidity, it is by itself a separate product that has been built out, and various protocols exist, and that's what Karma DAO is doing. So reserve currency comes next, but first things first is protocol loan liquidity. And we know the concept of this is simple. The more liquidity in a pool that is consistent and does not get removed, gives that floor price a lot of, gives it a floor price, because if it keeps building and we don't have people removing when markets are turning, or selling when markets are rising, that liquidity is staying consistent, the price won't fluctuate when people are trying to sell their tokens. So they've been actively reaching out. I haven't listened to this conversation, but definitely one to listen to. I don't know, Iconographer, have you had a chance to listen to it?
No, I haven't. But I would, I think for those, for those who are kind of coming at this a bit more uncertain how, kind of the ins and outs of Karma DAO and Karma Finance, I could certainly see it being a helpful, I won't say introduction, but certainly a guide of sorts.
Yeah. And this is what I mean. I have it on the page here. You can see Hyperconnect he did the same thing for OHM, and he's gone to engage with the Balanced and the community to make them aware that this is what they want to do. What else do we have? Also, well, while we're talking about Karma Finance, they have an NFT competition. I think it's $2,000. Where is it here? $2,000 to be shared. Winning design for an NFT collection for Karma for the protocol. So this is quite cool. Two grand. Icongraph, are you planning to get involved?
We'll see. A lot going on, but I'll certainly take a peek at it and see if my creative juices can flow in the right direction.
Yeah, sounds good. Next up, a bit of Optimus news. Stop me if I've skipped over anything, Icongrapher. So we've seen a tweet go out, 31st day. When was this? This is quite an old tweet. So look, anyway, it's a good point to call out. After the 31st day, every day the minting will decrease. The emissions for the Fin token will decrease by 0.5% until the 250th day, or until we get to 250 Fin being minted a day. So on the 766th day, it'll be the first day we get just 250 Fin. And so you're looking at a total supply of just over 2.2 million after 766 days. So obviously...
I imagine those who have been pretty involved with Optimus and Fin token, they're certainly aware of this, but for the broader community, in case you weren't aware, that kicked in. I think it kicked in after 30 days. So the yield rewards are gradually going down, but theoretically, the other side of that is theoretically that puts less pressure on sell price, just based on if there's folks still out there who are yield farming and just selling their tokens. There's less to sell on the market now. So can't say that'll mean the price goes up. Can't mean it'll go down. But nonetheless, that's the dynamic of play here. So
yeah. Good. I've forgotten to check my yield in a while. I'll be doing that after the recording. Then we have MouseBelts. So I noticed now they have come through to CPS. They're trying to throw a hybrid virtual in-person ICON conference. This is interesting. Anyway, this is a call out. We keep saying we want more of this stuff, and they are doing it. They've got their Reimagine series, which is, we had Galen on the show and he talked about the goal around that, was making a really nice, professionally done series of interviews and things like that. So, and part of their team, they actually have a big division now that does that. So you can see that this is where this is coming from, and they're wanting to organize, and they've got everything mapped out. Actually, it seems to be part of Reimagine, yes. So costings, and so if you have comments and things like that, please go in there and ask. I can see people have gone and asked or made suggestions, and you can see Adam has gone in and answered a lot of questions. One thing, yes, so one of the questions was, okay, this is cool, but I'd rather spend 60 grand on marketing activities with high profile crypto influencers. Okay, and this is where Adam's kind of got in there and said, yep, understand, but at the same time, isn't it better, or does an icon deserve to be represented with Polkadot, Ethereum, BSC, NEO, and others, the layer 1 blockchains? And completely agree.
I would also say there has been a good chunk of money spent on influencers over the last few months also. So it's not like it's a one or the other situation. And if you were gonna take a pretty simple approach, you'd say, oh wow, we spent money on influencers, now we're at 60 cents, which obviously is a very simplistic approach, but just something to consider. It's not that spending money with influencers isn't the only way to do marketing, so I would just keep that in mind.
Agree. And this is it. Like, I actually have been reaching out recently and to different community members and going, so marketing, everyone says it, well, give me more. And influencers isn't enough. If you start dabbling, you'll realize just how much influencers want for a tweet or thing. And this is standard. I find it insane. Overall, I think this proposal is in the right direction. what I like about this proposal, Iconographer, is we're starting to see obviously a bit of a shift. Some of this stuff may have been happening in the past via grants. I'm assuming they're coming through to CPS, which is by design, as the rewards and stuff have changed for PREPs. It makes sense, you know. IISS 3.1, fundamental change. Things in the background will start changing as well. This is not building some protocol, but that's what I love about it. It's a great example of, it's not just for builders CPS, it's for anyone who wants to do like the hackathon. Now we have MouseBelt wanting to do keep building off their reimagined conferences, and it's kind of, rather than them doing it in the background where you just saw the conference happen, which has been in the past. That's just, you know, reimagined, it's happening, follow this page. You're getting to see now how they're coming to the community going, yep, we've done it like this, now it's CPS. Full transparency, this is how much it costs, this is where all the money goes, this is what we're going to do. I love it. Personally, I love it. I think this, and I think Adam's comment here just captures it, where he calls out, shouldn't we be represented? And you know, like ETH Denver, a lot of conferences are going on. I spoke to, if you didn't listen to the interview, I know I've gone a bit of a rant here, Iconographer, sorry, but I feel this is, it's close to heart for me. Like Dan, who is the CMO for Insurace, when I was talking to him, you know what he told me? He said, this year I'm literally going to every conference, and he's just going everywhere. He's he'll be in Asia, he'll go to Dubai, he'll go wherever from an Insurace perspective, meeting, greeting, making connections, partnerships. Obviously, their protocol is insurance. It's a bit different than the chain agnostic that can go anywhere and start integrating and offer a product where they don't have to integrate the chain. They can just insure it on one of their existing chains as long as it goes through their approval process, etc. But my point is, super important. Rather than shillers, it's actually being in the conferences with the builders, seeing what's happening. So this is a great step, and I really hope we see Icon start to adopt going to these conferences and having a bit of a presence there, so people remember, hey, we've got the number 3 NFT store across all the chains, and yeah, we're around. Okay, rant over, Iconographer. Okay, now our sponsors, Gangstabet. I don't know, have you had time, Iconographer, to get across this? A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, I mean, actually, there was it was a pretty thorough article, but also a pretty exciting one. We've, from the get go, they just kind of started with, the Gangstabet. Okay, here's this character that you can upgrade skills and things like that. There wasn't really a clear understanding of what exactly that meant, but it kind of said like, hey, there's going to be something more going on in the future. And then we got started, they started leaking some information, some screenshots, we learned you could eventually, you'd be able to buy city blocks and there'd be airdrops and things like that. So we had this sense that, okay, there's going to be this city of sorts, but we still don't quite get the full sense of it. And I feel like with this most recent Medium article, it does a pretty good job of helping to really kind of shape out the how the ecosystem will work and how kind of the various metrics going into it. I don't want to go into it like line by line because there's a lot of information there, and I encourage everyone who is interested, and certainly if they're invested in Gangstabet, I certainly encourage you to read it. But there's a lot of different components that'll go into this. The Emerald City is what they're calling it. So you have city blocks, which I think are fairly self-explanatory. So that's kind of an element that we're already aware of, but will be involved. There's also, I think this is the first we've heard of it, at least I have, of civilians. So on the one side, you'll have the Gangstabets, which are either the detectives or the gangsters that we're all familiar with now. But there will be another component called civilians, which can be minted based on the existing Gangstabets that you already own. So they'll be tied, and when you mint, it'll be tied to the types of like classes and subclasses and skills and capabilities and things like that kind of they derive from the civilians will derive from the skills that you're and different characteristics that your gangster has essentially, and they themselves have different classes, so it's kind of folding a new layer of NFT into the ecosystem. There's also something called the bridge, which is what kind of brings the civilians in. There will be first generation civilians, and then future generations as well. So there's some kind of tokenomics behind that. And I want to make sure if I'm, and there's also something called journeys, which are kind of like, missions or challenges or things like that. So you're starting to see all the different types of gameplay kind of come together and get integrated and everything like that. I think the other thing to mention is that it formerly was the GG token. It's now called Crown. So just kind of it doesn't seem like it'll change things a whole lot. The way you earn it are basically still the same. You can either vote for Gangstabet PREP or provide liquidity in the GBET/BNUSD pair, or down the line be able to earn it by doing various in-game activities. But nonetheless, just so in case instead of seeing GG as a token, it'll now be Crown. So again, I kind of covered a lot there in a little bit of time, but if you haven't read the article, I encourage you to do it because it does provide a lot of cool information and some nifty screenshots as well.
Yeah, look, so much in this article. I've actually, when this article dropped, I've reached out to them, so you need to come on the show, and we need to dedicate time and just run through everything. We've got renaming of GG to Crown, governance token, GBET still exists, upgrade purposes, scarcity, all that still, nothing's changed. Now your NFTs can be used. They've got the game mechanics where, you control components of the city, and that's why you have your gangsters/detectives. Based on that, you can mint NFTs, new NFTs that are civilians. They do chores, they contribute to the big picture somehow. On top of that, there's another token, which is the password token or something like that you need to have when you mint a civilian to bring them into the city. So, you can't just go hoarding civilians, let's say, to accomplish or get ahead, because you need that token. So I'm guessing that's another one. Could there be a pair there? Could it hold more value than GBET if it is rarer? So many questions, IconGraph. I have so many questions. And I was literally scrolling through the article. Then there's leveling up. Oh, there's so much. But you can see a bit of a roadmap here. Emerald City. And to top it off, one thing, if you read the article very carefully, they mention the next city on Polygon, which is interesting in itself. What could that mean?
Right.
Right. So, actually, here I have it on screen. Here you go, the Sapphire City. So, yeah, super interesting. I love how they've done the FAQ section as well. So, if you haven't already, make sure you read the article. I had to read it a couple of times before it sunk in, but excited to see where this goes. Great, Gangstabet. Now, Supernode Racing, there was another tease. Oh, it's looking good. In fact, that's another thing. Looking at the Frost tracker, you can see just mysterious Supernode Racing transactions. So obviously they've deployed.
And for those who don't know, do you want to briefly mention what Frost is?
Yes. So Frost is the testnet for Ice and Snow, and it is the first testnet that has dropped. Did it drop? What month are we in, IconGraph? Oh, in Feb. Did it? Yeah, Feb.
Yeah,
late June.
Relatively recently.
Yeah,
something like that.
So yes, it's testnet. So obviously, Snow and Ice don't need separate testnets. It's the same chain. It's just how the parachain process is. We've got to get to Kasuma and then Polkadot. So Supernode Racing was always received funding. They are building it to, obviously now they'll first deploy on Snow. Now they were building it on one of the Ethereum testnets, but as soon as this testnet became available, obviously they're going to deploy their contracts because it's compatible and start running tests and see how things are going. It is still very early in the Frost testnet. If you look at the roadmap, you can see phase 1 is that very broken. In what sense? There's a lot of upgrades going on to the blockchain, resets, things like that, but I believe that is soon going to evolve to phase 2, where it's more stable and the builders can keep building. But just in general, if you go into the Discord and stuff like that, really good stuff happening with the Frost testnet. A lot of devs asking about it, a lot of people trialing. I made mention of the bubble that was an Icon project, but I've seen tokens of that name on on Frost, which I found interesting. So people are definitely playing with it, and yeah, excited that Supernode Racing is coming along nicely. Every picture gets more and more detail. This time you can see it's not just a car, but there's a bit of a menu and stuff around it. I kept talking. Icongraph, any thoughts?
Nope, no, I think you covered that pretty well.
Cool. Then the final bit, if you haven't already, this article that got released, Sync or Stink. ICX token syncs within the Icon ecosystem. Have you had a chance to read this?
Yeah, and it's kind of you initially read it and you kind of go, well, this doesn't sound good, but it was kind of an interesting way to think about it. You basically have I think everyone's kind of familiar with a faucet. I think the most early, essentially the earliest description of it was, they had the Bitcoin faucet where you could literally go to a website and get free Bitcoin. If only we were so lucky to everyone have been aware of it back then. Only a select few early adopters were aware of it. But basically, there's faucets that basically exist even on Icon, where if you need to get like the testnet, if you need to get some quote unquote free ICX, you can use a faucet that basically dumps a bunch of it into your wallet. So in this metaphor, the faucet is basically the inflation generated by the Icon ecosystem or the Icon tokenomics system that basically spits out more ICX. Granted, it does it in a very well designed and intricate way, but that's the one hand. Now, on the other hand, we have something called sinks, which is basically where ICX can flow. So basically, one of them being like staking ICX, right? It's where ICX can go where it sort of flows out of circulation. So it goes from the faucet, through kind of whatever channel, and then out, out the sink. You also have kind of some of the other they mentioned the bonds, where so people who are P-reps, they can lock up their ICX in order to bond it, and in order to continue receiving rewards. I think if you're familiar with the new IISS 3.1, which we discussed in the past, that's like an example of that. You also have CPS, where the treasury funds are locked, and then BTP down the line with the 2% fee that'll go on transactions that'll be put up for auction down the road. So there's a lot of different, and also just I think the most one, probably the one people are most familiar with, is all the DeFi protocols that have people lock their tokens. So it's not that it necessarily destroys the ICX, which is kind of like would be the inverse of it being created by the faucet. But it nonetheless is a good way to think about it, as far as, everyone kind of focuses on how much inflation there is without necessarily focusing on all the different ways that inflation can get locked up over both the short and the long term. So I just thought it was a cool way to think about that dynamic.
Yeah, look, definitely worth a read. What's interesting? I actually saw just the picture, and in the early days when I was listening to Bankless, one of the big they used to, this was the pitch about ETH getting sucked. That's why Ether's money and ETH was getting sucked by DeFi, and essentially a lot of the early days they showed they would focus on where ETH is getting absorbed, and straight away I made comparisons, and then I knew I had to read this because that's exactly what it's done. We're all very much focused, and I'll be quite vocal. Pre 3.1, I couldn't understand how inflation worked. I still can't wrap my head around it. But post 3.1, it's crystal clear. 4%, this is how it goes. But the other side of it, we've known P-Reps bond, we know all this stuff, but no one's taken the time to really understand, well, yes, there's this happening, but where's the ICX going? And what is it being used for? And this is brilliant. That's where the sync comes in, right? So, P-Rep bonds, 5%. So all that on top, there's a large portion now being locked away just for that. Look, BTP DeFi is a great example now. And I was just thinking how correlated CPS is. So DeFi, and we've used this example. You can mint 30. Just I don't know. Let's use an example. We know for BNUSD we need to lock up basically close to 4 ICX to to mint $1 4 times. Now we've got CPS that is now being paid out a large portion of it in BNUSD. Yes, the inflation is being sold to BNUSD. Kind of sucks, but one thing that upon reflection, it means that there is demand for BNUSD. So what happens when there's demand for BNUSD? Well, if there isn't enough BNUSD, the price goes up, right? of the coin. So we need more supply, which means people need to lock more ICX into balance to mint that supply. And what's reflective, you'll start seeing, rates go up on OHM. The other DeFi products start telling you, if there's a demand for it or not a demand. If the rates drop, there's a lot of BNUSD. But what creates demand? I've always said this, Iconographer. I'm not making this shit up. Like, I've always said, if we can create utility for our stablecoin in our ecosystem first, and I know it's slow, but yes, the real demand comes when it's outside, but internally, if we can create it, it becomes more stable by itself. It has a ripple effect into our entire ecosystem and mainly ICX. So again, bit of a rant.
You can make that's kind of the Luna playbook, right, with UST.
But this is just it, man, and you've hit it in the head because everyone's like, oh, burn, but and I love Luna. Nothing's changed for me. But I start questioning when people are going, burn. And I go, well, is it really burning or is it a matter of perception? Because majority of the protocols that mint a stablecoin are using a burn mechanism, but they're locking it. In Luna, they're burning it, but that supply can reappear if tables have turned. Not criticizing, but you see the concept is not different. In this case, we're locking ICX. It's locked. Nothing else can happen with that ICX. However, if we need to, burn the BNUSD, so I'll use that word, it will mint ICX. It's the same thing. While the ICX is locked, it can't do anything. It's locked because it's used to mint BNUSD. So it's burned to mint BNUSD. It's not 1 per 1. In fact, it's 4 per 1. So the utility of that stablecoin, and this is why I'm such a big fan of the decentralized, because it is a decentralized stablecoin on our side as well. Adoption for it internally, even with NFTs and token sales and stuff like that, I always come back to why ICX use BNUSD, because overall it's much better for looking at this article for the sync thesis. We could call it that, the sync thesis, where the more adoption, the more ICX gets sucked up, the better it is overall. And look, CPS, as we're starting to see more protocols, and this is where TJ's tweet was brilliant, where he broke down the cost value, where if each of these protocols that get released, if they suck up this much of inflation to build, and then they generate this many transactions, this is what it's doing overall versus us just burning that inflation currently. So where is it? Where do you want to create your value? Do you want to create short-term value to go, yay, we're burning, which is next to nothing, or keep using it to keep building out the ecosystem, which will just eventually quadruple the burn, in the long run. So rant over, great article, and the best part is it's quite brief, but you get the picture very quickly. So definitely give it a read. Okay, too many rants, Iconographer. You got to stop me, man. You got to just say, "Shut up, Fez. Shut up."
No, I'm just letting it flow.
Cool. Look, that's all we had for the news this week. And Iconographer, can you think of anything else?
No, I think we pretty much we covered a number of topics, so I think we got pretty thorough this week.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, as always, please like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. Please, let's get the new channel to the old channel numbers. That would be great. What have we got coming up? I don't have any alpha, but what I do want to say is not financial advice. Okay, everyone, please do your own research. Nothing we say should be used, or make sure you're doing your own research before you invest. As always, thank you everyone for listening. Until next time.
See ya.